welcome back to another episode of Movie Bracket Challenge.
Hi everybody, welcome to Smiling with Erin D. I hope you're having a great day, and this is my recap of Cinderella. Cinderella came out in 1950. I love Cinderella. It is not my favorite princess, but it is a good, great movie, and it's definitely held the test of times. We are talking about the 1950 version, and I love this one. I love how it opens, with seeing the house coming with the lights kind of brightening up. We go into Cinderella's room where she's awakened by birds, and it's so cute. I love Cinderella and how she feeds all the animals, including the mice, and she is friends with the birds, the dogs, the cows, the pigs, everybody. Any animals on here she's friends with, except for maybe one. The one that maybe doesn't like her so much is Lucifer the cat. Lucifer does get her into quite a bit of trouble throughout the movie. Lucifer is definitely would like to eat the mice. He is definitely mean to Cinderella. He is the stepmother and stepsister's cat, and he's spoiled rotten by them. But really, he's spoiled by Cinderella, who is the one who takes care of him. But he doesn't see it that way. Cinderella has two stepsisters who, in the movie, do not portray as loving her very much. They treat her like a maid, not a sister. The stepmother treats her like a maid and a housekeeper. There's really no one in the house besides the mice and the birds and the dog and the horse that loves Cinderella, but no person. But she's such a happy-go-lucky person, even in this life. They're getting ready for a ball. Cinderella seems really excited. Her stepmother has said she can go as long as she can get her dress ready in time. But the stepsisters and the stepmom are going to do everything they can and give her every chore they can to make sure she cannot complete that dress. But thankfully, to our mice friends and the birds, they do get the dress ready. And it is a beautiful scene. Two of the mice go looking for stuff throughout the house to help Cinderella out. Gus and Jack, we see them go down the wall, and the stepsisters are throwing her pearls and this like strip of fabric that's beautiful on the ground, saying they don't want it no more. So the mice take it to help make Cinderella's dress. And I love the music while they're making the dress. It's so fun and timeless. I don't care when you hear it, you know where it's from. It's a great scene. I love the mice trying to surprise Cinderella. I love that once everybody is ready, Cinderella is so sad because she can't go because she doesn't have a dress. But the mice surprise her with this gorgeous dress, and I love the scene where it opens up to show her the dress they have made for her. And Cinderella is so grateful and humble when she puts on the dress, and so gorgeous. And she goes down the stairs, and they know she's the most beautiful girl. But the stepmother has to point out, where did she get those pearls? Where did she get that extra fabric? And of course, the stepsisters tear the dress apart. How terrible. They don't even seem like they care about her feelings at all. Actually, we know they don't. So Cinderella is heartbroken. Her dress is destroyed, and she is so sad. But her stepsisters and her stepmom, they go off to the ball. Cinderella is left there in tears when her fairy godmother appears. And her fairy godmother is quite quirky and sweet and a little forgetful at times. She makes the pumpkin a carriage, the horse into, I don't know what it's called, but the person who steers all the other horses. The horses are made from the mouses. The dog Gus becomes the carriage door opener and the footman. And it's beautiful. And I love how all the animals, besides Gus, are into it. Gus tries to run away, being scared of being turned into a horse. But that was one of the best scenes. Gus gets caught under Lucifer's cup right as the magic takes him and makes him into a horse. And I love this. I love that the fairy godmother gets everything ready, tries to push Cinderella into the carriage. And no sooner is she pushing into the carriage than she realizes Cinderella is still in the ripped dress. And she has to fix this now, doesn't she? So bippity boppity boo, and Cinderella is made into this gorgeous dress. She is gorgeous from head to toe. I love the hairpiece down to the glass slippers. But who wants to walk in glass slippers all day long? I'm just saying. So she is off to the ball in just a moment. But first, the fairy godmother warns her. At the strike of midnight, all the magic will go. Cinderella says, no, that's more than enough. She's thrilled to even be able to go. Cinderella gets into the carriage. As she's going off, the fairy godmother warns her one more time, strike at midnight, come back. And Cinderella is off. We get to the ball where the prince is meeting all these young ladies of the village. The king is on a balcony with his assistant, we'll call him, and the assistant is telling the king that no, the prince hasn't fallen in love. Prince isn't going to find anybody. There's no magical moment going to happen. The king romanticized this and it just wasn't going to work. So this just wasn't going to work. So the prince at this moment looks up and sees Cinderella in the distance. He goes past the two stepsisters who are bowing to him at the moment, and he walks right through them, literally right through them. And he walks up to Cinderella, who is happy and beautiful, and then he greets her, and then they go on to the dance floor because the king has ordered the waltz to start, the lights to be dim, and we see them dance. And they dance all around the dance floor. It's gorgeous and it's sweet, and they are definitely looking at each other lovingly when the clock strikes midnight. So Cinderella has to go. The magic is going to end. She jumps into the pumpkin, not before dropping her slipper and her glass shoe down the stairs as she's running away from the prince. She gets in the carriage, she goes off, not too far into the woods. The pumpkin becomes a pumpkin, and they all almost get run over by the people chasing them to try and catch this beautiful maiden who has stolen the prince's heart. They go into the woods to hide. Even at this moment, Cinderella is still optimistic. She says what a wonderful time she has and how grateful she is for it, and how the man she danced with couldn't have been any more handsomer, and she bets he was even more handsome than the prince. So we realize she doesn't know she was dancing with the prince. So sweet and so kind, and she's so happy. The next morning, when the stepsisters are trying to do their usual burying Cinderella in work, Cinderella could not be happier, and she is just humming and happy and even more bright than she always is. So the stepmother is onto it, that there is something that has happened. Cinderella is thrilled, and thrilled that she had this night to remember. And even though she lost one of the glass slippers, she still has the other one to remember it. And meantime, we see back at the castle that they come up with a plan. They're going to have the glass slipper tried on by all the maidens in the village, because they're going to find her. And then whoever fits the glass slipper is going to marry the prince. This is what is determined. The king is thrilled. He's going to get the next generation. He's going to get grandkids, which is really what the king wants. And it's so cute. He wants his son to be married. He wants his grandchildren already. And so the assistant of the king and apparently his assistant go and try on the shoes to everyone. Meanwhile, back in Cinderella's house, she's being still treated nasty. But they get news that there will be another chance for the maidens to win the prince's heart, because the shoe has been lost by the woman at the ball that the prince was obsessed with. And whoever can fit the glass slipper, whoever foot will fit into it, gets to marry the prince. So this is the new goal. Fit the glass slipper. The stepmother ends up locking Cinderella up in her room in the attic, while the employees of the castle come down to have everyone in the house try on the slipper. One stepsister goes, it doesn't fit, it's too big. It doesn't fit either of the stepsisters. Even the stepmother tries. And they insist there's no other women in the house, so these men should be off. But while they were trying on the shoes, the mice had stolen the key that had locked Cinderella upstairs. And they are on their way to get the key up the stairs. Gus and Jax really work it out, getting these stairs up. Gus is exhausted, and Jack is pushing him, and they do it. They get it all the way up the stairs, and they're about to get it into Cinderella's room when they're stopped by that darn cat again. I mean, I'm a cat person, but this cat, Lucifer, can just go away. He traps Gus and the key under a cup. And no matter what everybody does, Jack bites his tail, gets Lucifer to jump up in the air, but Lucifer jumps back down and lands right on that cup, so Gus can't escape with the key. The birds drop plates and everything they can think of on Lucifer, but Lucifer will not let Gus go and let the key go. He's determined he's keeping Gus, and there's nothing they can do. But then Cinderella remembers that Lucifer is afraid of Gus, the dog. So they're off, and they go get Gus. The birds bring Gus up to scare Lucifer, and it works. Cinderella gets the key and gets out of the room and starts running down the stairs. As the men from the castle are about to leave, stepmother says, "No, there's no one else here." And then Cinderella goes, "Can I try on the shoe?" And she walks down the stairs because the assistant of the king says everybody in the kingdom must try, all the women of the kingdom must try on the shoe. So he walks over. He's thrilled because her feet look tiny. After all, what he just dealt with is crazy. And he gestures to the man with the shoe to walk over. The stepmother puts her cane out and trips the man with the shoe, and the glass slipper goes flying right in front of Cinderella and crashes into a million pieces. And the assistant of the king is crushed and saddened and doesn't know what he's going to do. He's going to lose his job. The king's going to be furious. What will happen? And Cinderella goes, "Can I help?" And he's like, "No, there's nothing you can do." And she pulls out the other glass slipper. And she shows him, and he slips it on with a smile onto Cinderella's foot. And the stepmother is shocked. Everybody, all the mice and the animals are thrilled. Stepsisters and the stepmother, whatever. But everybody is thrilled. Then we see that Cinderella has married the prince, and they're running down to the carriage that they have, which is gorgeous. And they even have Cinderella's horse from her home. We see the mice have joined her, and they're up, and they're staring down at her as they are all wearing little outfits and little suits, and it's gorgeous, and they're so handsome and so cool the way they ended the movie. Cinderella rides off with her prince. We see them in the back of the carriage as they give each other a kiss, and then it ends with they lived happily ever after. And that is my recap of Cinderella. Everybody, this is my recap of The Incredibles. This is the original Incredibles that I am covering right now. It is the 2004 version. I will warn everybody who is light sensitive, there are spots in the beginning of the movie to be careful of. Most of the movie is okay in the original Incredibles. There are some fight scenes that you have to be careful of, but for the most part, it's a good movie for epileptics. The movie starts with the superheroes giving like interviews, Mr. Incredible, Elastic Girl. At this point, you can tell they're not together because Elastic Girl talks about not wanting to settle down and how she's not ready and she likes to be in the fight and why should they leave it up to the men's. Mr. Incredible is tired of the fighting a little bit. You can tell he's like, um, it'd be nice not to save the world every day. So definitely interesting the way it starts out. We do find out they go into hiding. All the superheroes are not wanted anymore because of an accident, and so they're all in hiding, including Mr. Incredible's best friend, Frozone. I love Frozone. I actually got to meet him at Hollywood Studios about a year ago. It was super cool, great character. They do a really good job if you want to meet Frozone. So we get to meet their kids and find out the superheroes have children and that it is inherited. They don't always get the same superpowers, but they do get superpowers. Violet gets the superpower of becoming invisible and a shield to protect herself. I think this is awesome. Dash is very appropriate because his superpower is to run really fast. It's super cool and very convenient in this movie. Jack, at the beginning of the movie, we don't know what his superpower is yet. He is the baby. As the movie starts out, you get to see Mr. Incredible's kind of bored with normal life, as they say. He's not really enjoying his life, not really enjoying having a regular job and not being able to be a superhero. Dash wants to be able to show his superpowers, but is not allowed. And he does get in trouble at school because he does stuff like put pins on the teacher's chair. He does get caught by the camera, but his dad is proud because he still didn't get in trouble for it, even though he's caught on camera. Mrs. Incredible, Elastic Girl, is furious. She's definitely the disciplinarian in the parents. It's definitely nice to see that their kids have very strong personalities. Violet and Dash are like normal siblings. They fight, but they're also protective of each other, as you'll see later in the movie. You get into the movie, and Frozone and Mr. Incredible go out for bowling. But really what they're doing is talking about old times and trying to still be superheroes undercover. Superheroes undercover as superheroes. Very interesting. And they go into a burning building, and Frozone's powers don't really work in there because there's no moisture in the air. They do save people, and it's really incredible, which appropriate for the movie. Mr. Incredible gets recruited to be a superhero again and to save people. He's very excited. He gets his uniform out, which doesn't really fit him because he's gained a lot of weight since his superhero days. But he goes and fights a machine for a new job because he's been fired from his past boring job because he threw his boss through a lot of walls. But he's trying not to move because it seems like maybe he's gone through a lot of jobs and they've relocated him a bunch of times, and his family is finally settled and he doesn't want to disrupt that. So he takes this job in secret, and his wife doesn't know that he's been fired from the last job. Takes this superhero job. His costume does get wrecked during the battle with the machine, which he won. So he has to go meet Edna Mode. Edna Mode is incredible, has some of the best lines. I love when she says, "I don't look back," because she's talking about the costume. She has incredible lines in the movie, and she's just fun, and she's one of my favorite characters in The Incredibles. I love her wittiness and her smarts and how tough she is for this little tiny person. I also got to meet Edna Mode in Hollywood Studios. Super fun character. And she is so popular that she actually gets to have a meet and greet inside. She is one of the main spots to go see when you go in there. Definitely check out Edna Mode in the Pixar alleyway in Hollywood Studios. It's right across from Walt Disney's museum. So she makes up a whole new costume for Mr. Incredible, an updated one that actually fits, so that he can be a superhero again. He doesn't actually know who he's working for yet, though. But he is making money and he is getting in shape. Him getting in shape makes him feel better, helps his relationship with his family, gets him and his wife close together and romantic again. It's very sweet. Throughout the movie, we don't know who he's working for, though. So now he's called back for another job from his mysterious boss. And at this point, Elastigirl's a little suspicious. She doesn't really know what's going on. However, she does figure out that his old uniform has been tweaked. So she goes to the only person who could have done it, Edna Mode. Edna Mode and Elastigirl, you can obviously tell they are friends. They have a long history. They know each other very well. Edna Mode takes her to show her all the new uniforms she has for the whole family. Edna has absolutely kept track of them. She knows everybody's powers except for Jack Jack's because nobody knows Jack Jack's yet. Elastigirl is not happy about this. That means Mr. Incredible is being a superhero again, and it does not make her happy.
I cut it a little roomy for the free movement. The fabric is comfortable for sensitive skin and can also withstand a temperature of over 1,000 degrees. Completely bulletproof. And machine washable, darling. That's a new feature.
What on earth do you think the baby will be doing?
Well, I'm sure I don't know, darling. Luck favors the prepared. I didn't know the baby's powers, so I covered the basics.
Jack doesn't have any powers.
No? Well, could look fabulous anyway. Your boy's suit are designed to withstand enormous friction without heating up or wearing out, a useful feature. Your daughter's suit was tricky, but I finally created a sturdy material that will disappear completely as she does. Your sword can stretch as far as you can without injuring yourself and still retain its shape. Virtually indestructible. It breathes like Egyptian cotton. As an extra feature, each suit contains a homing device, giving you the precise global location of the wearer at the touch of a button. Well, darling, what do you think?
But she's also suspicious to still where he is. In the meantime, Mr. Incredible has gotten himself into some trouble because the mysterious boss he's working for is actually someone out to get him. An enemy, a villain. He's been working for a villain. Actually, what he's been doing is letting the villain figure out if his machines can beat Mr. Incredible. The villain's name is Syndrome. And Syndrome met Mr. Incredible when he was a kid, and he wanted to be Mr. Incredible's sidekick, but Mr. Incredible wants to work alone. And Mr. Incredible wasn't very nice to Syndrome when he was a kid, and Syndrome has definitely held a grudge. He wants to be a superhero, even though he has no superpowers of his own. But he is an inventor, so he's invented stuff to make it look like things are attacking people, and he can be the hero that saves them. Let's see how that works out for him. But he has Mr. Incredible in a tight spot. He tries to kill Mr. Incredible, and he thinks he has. But Mr. Incredible was just hiding. And he makes his way back to the mansion that the villain has to try and get even. Or figure out what he's doing. Save himself. Save everybody, because that's what superheroes do. But Syndrome catches him, and he gets caught up in this electric sort of trap versus maybe a prison, or I'm not sure what to call it. He has his arms in an electric thing, and he's tied up. And so Mr. Incredible's in danger. Mrs. Incredible at this point has gotten a plane, and she's on her way to save her husband. While she's on her way, she finds out that Violet's on the plane. Violet, of course, says, well, it wasn't my fault, it's Dash's fault. So she figures out she has her 2 kids on the plane with her. 2 out of 3 are already into mischief just like their parents. So Mrs. Incredibles is flying the plane towards the island where Mr. Incredibles is now being held captive. The villain and his troop have figured out the plane is coming towards them. And they listen in on the radio, and Mrs. Incredible's voice is on there. And of course, Mr. Incredible recognizes it, which totally gives Syndrome the upper hand. He sends targets out to destroy the plane, and Mr. Incredible is so upset. But there's nothing he can do. He's tied up at the moment. So even though Mrs. Incredible says she has children on a plane, does not stop the villain from trying to take it down. Violet doesn't know the power or the strength of her superpower yet about the shield. So the plane is hit. However, Mrs. Incredible at the last moment has her kids wrapped up in her arms and protects them from the plane exploding. On the way down, Mrs. Incredible, Elastigirl, uses her superpowers to get them into the water safely. She also uses her superpower with Dash's to get them to the island by making herself a boat and Dash the motor. And Violet sitting on the boat. When they get there, they're exhausted. They hide in a cave where Mrs. Incredible tells them to stay. And she's going to go after her husband. But she tells Violet she's in charge, and she tells them to protect each other. Violet and Dash do get found out by the villain's troops. They try and attack. Violet goes invisible, and she tells her brother to run. Dash does an incredible job running all through the island, even on the water, and he takes down a lot of the planes. But he gets himself in a tough spot, and it takes both of them to save each other. First, Dash saves Violet when one of the troopers is about to shoot her. He runs right after him. And then when the planes and the men with the guns were about to get Dash, Violet jumps in front to protect her brother, and a shield comes up, which surprises Violet. She doesn't know she has this power, this strength. She knows she has a shield, but not at this level. So they protect each other. True love and true brotherly and sisterly love, you can see here. I love in the moment when Dash punches the guard, he says, "Don't hit my sister." You can definitely see their bond is, I can do anything to my sister, but you can't. It's really fun to watch them. Mrs. Incredible does get to her husband, and they get out of the mansion. They get to the kids, and as a family, they try to defeat the troops. But they were all caught. So then Syndrome tells them his plan, as they're all now tied up where Mr. Incredible was, in the electric sort of fence. And he goes off to become the fake superhero to people. And as soon as he leaves, Mr. Incredible tells everybody how sorry he is and how he should have appreciated them. While he's doing this, Violet, in her superpowers, just sort of jumps down from the fence. She turns off the electric fence, and they are all free. They get all through the mansion to find a plane. They help each other, using each other's superpowers and trusting each other. Mrs. Elastic uses her elastic stuff to get them all. They're in a bus, and she puts the bus attached to her and onto a plane, and flies them to the States or whatever city they're going to fight off Syndrome and try and defeat this monster. The monster that Syndrome has built. Right before they get there, the monster is attacking the town. Syndrome is pretending he is a real superhero, but this machine is really smart and it learns. And so it sees that Syndrome is controlling him by, it's almost like a watch or belt on his wrist, and the machine knocks it off him. And Syndrome is powerless because he has no real superpowers. His power was controlling the monster that he had built. So it's up to the Incredibles and Frozen to save the day. And they do. They work together, all their superpowers. It takes all of them to protect, save each other, and save the day to everybody. They do an incredible job, and the city people are all happy. They want to celebrate the superheroes again. And the superheroes get in a limo and are driving back. Mrs. Incredibles, or Elastic Girl, was listening to her messages and hears that her Jack is in trouble. She doesn't know exactly why or how. They get back to the house and Syndrome has Jack. And he plans to raise Jack and make Jack his sidekick. Raise him as evil. He puts them all in a transform or bubble and throws them and takes off to his jet in the sky. As he's going up, we find out Jack's superpowers. Jack can turn himself into things. He turns himself into a weight that almost takes down Syndrome. He turns himself into a ball of fire, a monster. He really is incredible. Eventually, he gets loose from Syndrome and starts to drop to the ground. And at this point, Mr. Incredible throws up Elastic Girl, who catches her son and makes a like an air balloon type to bring him safely to the ground. And Mr. Incredible throws a car up to the airplane to have it explode. Syndrome, with his cape that he must have and has on, gets caught in the blades. Now this is a flashback to the beginning of the movie. Edna Mode will not let Mr. Incredible have a cape because she said no good come from a cape. And man, was she right. Because Syndrome does not make it out alive, as far as we know, because of his cape. So Edna Mode, once again, is right. That is about the end of our movie. It was an incredible movie. Definitely go check it out if you haven't. They do have an Incredibles 2. This one is not epileptic friendly, so I will not be covering it here on my channel. But I do love Edna Mode. And if you're in Hollywood Studios, go check out Mr. Incredible and Elastic Girl. They're there, and Frozen. I got to take a picture with all of them. Mr. Incredible and Elastic Girl together, and then Frozen. And Edna Mode. Definitely fun to check out. It's right across from Walt's Museum, which has Little Mermaid at the moment. And so if you're in Hollywood Studios, go get some pictures and send them to me because I love seeing pictures. And let's see if this is your vote. Thanks everybody for joining. Don't forget to vote. Comment section and our community page.